Hello, I'm Toycat and welcome back to my second channel geography video. Today I wanted to talk about the weird citizenship passport rabbit hole I've been going down because I have been applying for a brand new citizenship. Fun fact, did you know I'm actually not entirely British? I have a Sri Lankan grandmother. No one believes that that's true, but I do have a real Sri Lankan grandmother from Sri Lanka. She makes Sri Lankan curries and she tells me stories about how God put people in the microwave and some people were overcooked and some people were undercooked like me and some people were cooked just right like her. This is all real stuff that I have heard from my grandmother, and I also have a Northern Irish grandfather. I always assumed he was actually Irish and my father was just bigging up his unionist credentials, but no, I have a grandfather who I recently have learned was born in County Antrim. So this is a part of Northern Ireland, which is just a part of the United Kingdom of Great Britain, Northern Ireland, and therefore it should just be a part of my passport were this any other country. But let me tell you a fun fact about Ireland. Irish citizenship can be acquired not only through a parent or a grandparent, or even in some cases a great-grandparent. So if you have a great-grandparent but you live elsewhere, you can sometimes get Irish citizenship. If you have a grandparent and you live elsewhere, you can still get Irish citizenship even if you've never stood foot there. But the even more interesting thing is the fact that Ireland used to claim the entire island of Ireland. They now want to, but they don't officially do it. And so as a result of that, they grant citizenship to Northern Irish passport holders because the UK government's position is something along the lines of like, you know, just we want you to be happy, Northern Ireland, do whatever you want, have whatever passport you want. Also, way more importantly than any of that, we just want you to stop bombing us. If having an Irish passport stops you doing that, sure, great. So that's been the UK's government position, that's been the Irish government's position. Northern Irish people can choose to get British passports or Irish passports, depending on what they see themselves as. And this is a really quirky thing, I think, even when you think about the here and now, but even quirkier is the fact that I have a grandparent who is from County Antrim, I believe based on the fact that he moved to England at some point, that he was some form of, you know, big up on the UK kind of thing. Also, he's from the unionist part of Northern Ireland, and despite being in pretty much the furthest away part of Northern Ireland from Ireland, like seriously, the closest way to the border is at least 44 miles, being almost as far away from Ireland as you can be, that has not stopped him officially being within Ireland's remit for a citizenship, meaning I can become Irish. And I've known about this for a few years now, and I think it's quirky and weird, and because a lot of people have tried to become Irish because the UK is no longer in the EU. Did you know? And people are like, I want my EU citizenship back, so they become Irish. Personally, I've never held too much stock in the idea of EU citizenship. But the one thing that did convince me, interestingly enough, is I looked at this map on Wikipedia. So first of all, here's the thing that I just mentioned. As of 2021, Irish citizenships are the only nationality in the world with the right to live and work in both the European Union and the United Kingdom. That is true. The UK and Ireland share an EU-like agreement separate to the EU, and Ireland and the EU share an EU agreement, which is included in the EU. Wow, bet you didn't know that. And anyway, here's the same Wikipedia article for visa requirements of British citizens. And if you look at the two maps right here, you can see that, like, oh yeah, they're pretty similar, right? But there's one huge difference, and that is that Russia will give you an e-visa if you are Irish, but not if you're British. And I honestly, I'd heard that Russia was rolling out e-visas for Europeans, and or Europeans. I assumed the UK was included, but then I found this map of the visa policy of Russia. Fun fact: there's articles and maps for all these. It's really beautiful to see. And as you can see, Russia will give every single European country, all of them besides the UK and Albania, e-visa for Russia. This is a lot easier to acquire. You don't have to go to an embassy and all this other stuff. You can just go to Russia, basically. Whereas if you are British or Albanian, I guess also if you're Georgian, but like, are they even European? Let's have a debate about that. Then you can just go to Russia. It's very easy. You even have free movement if you're in Belarus, and you have a visa waiver if you're in one of the former what is that whole thing called? The Commonwealth of Independent States? The USSR. If you're one of those countries, you get a nice little thing. Also Serbia and Bosnia and also Montenegro. So there you go. Fun facts about Russia you didn't know. But this was the thing that convinced me, like, you know what? There is going to be some very marginal benefits to being Irish versus being British. Like, because in general, if you look at the passport ranking index, this is the one by Henley. This is the one by it's by Henley and Partners. It's a passport map that is generally used to rank the power of passports. So the most powerful passport in the world is generally considered to be either Japan or Singapore. Sometimes Germany comes up, but basically there are some passports that have visa-free access to a lot of countries. Japanese citizens can access the vast majority of the world not requiring a visa or requiring a very easy visa like an e-visa. If you look at this by comparison, you can see how, over here, number 7, we've got the UK and the US and Switzerland and Norway. And then we've got a bunch of EU countries at 6, including Ireland, Portugal, Sweden. Anyway, it's got Ireland in there, which means that Ireland has access to one country that the UK doesn't, which means they have a very slightly more powerful passport. And given that I'm, like, eligible to access one, I figured, why not, right? It's going to be a lot of effort. I have to, like, find a death certificate, which I found. I have to find a birth certificate. Like, can't I have one or the other? But apparently I can't. I'm going to have to go through some stuff, but it means that if I want to be, I can be a Irish citizen, which means... should we talk about the EU thing in a little bit? We probably should. But yeah, as you can see, this means I can have access to this map or this map. Here's the... or this map. It looks very different. I guess because the EU is blue and the Russia thing. It looks like it's significantly fewer countries. Just as an interesting little quirk, it's actually not just Russia which changes between them. You might assume, so Ireland has access to 186 countries, the UK has access to 185, therefore it's just Russia, right? No, actually, if you look on the two maps, the UK has very slightly easier access to... I thought it was Venezuela. I found the country and I lost it. So this is the British map, whereas Ireland has easier access to Mongolia, where they can get a visa on arrival, whereas British people have to go to the embassy. Is it like Kyrgyzstan or one of those weird ones? Yeah, if you look at this, you can get a e-visa for, I think, Kyrgyzstan if you're Irish, but if you're... Oh, no, it's required for both, apparently. Anyway, so there's very, very, very minor different discrepancies between the two. You might think, am I ever going to need my British passport again? Well, one... It's probably the one that I'll use to get into the UK. And 2, interestingly enough, it's not just about can you get in or not. That's what these passport indexes miss. But there's also a few countries where you get slightly longer stays in the UK versus Ireland. In Ireland, you only get 180-day stays in Peru, Armenia, Mexico, and Panama. In the UK, I think it's a couple of other countries because Canada, and so you get 180 days in, apparently India. That's new. You get India as well. Jamaica, Japan, but you have to extend it, so is that really? Who knows? You get, and then apparently Mexico. Is Canada not on the list for some reason? I guess they probably have it as 6 months. So if we go down to, let's find this. So 6 months. The UK has access to New Zealand for 6 months, whereas, do Irish people? Actually, let's find out right now. Fun videos where Toycat looks at a big table. So, whereas Irish people can access Canada, Barbados, Dominica, Jordan, and that's it for 6 months. British people have access to Barbados, Canada, Dominica, Grenada, New Zealand for 6 months. Wait, is one of those countries was only for Ireland, right? Jordan will let Irish people in for 6 months, but British people, Jordan, only get... we'd have to control F Jordan here. I could do this, a free visa on arrival with conditions apply. It probably is 6 months, and... Whatever, long story short, there's very minor differences between the two, but the reason I wanted to make this video is not just to flex on you all that, like, I had a grandparent born in a part of the UK that has a problem with bombing other parts of the UK, or maybe a part of Ireland that has problems with its political status, depending on your viewpoint. Isn't that, like... But I think that's kind of bizarre, first of all, that, like, because I had a grandparent that is from... A weird part of the UK, I'll admit. It is special. Like, it actually makes sense when you follow it, but it's weird that I have a grandparent from... all of my grandparents, actually. Assuming my other grandparent is Northern Irish or English. I don't know. Haven't ever asked. But all my parents are therefore grandparents are from the British Empire, because this used to be British Ceylon when my grandmother left, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so, basically, the interesting thing here is that despite me effectively, therefore, if I want to declare myself as 100% British, it's arguably true, I am eligible for an Irish passport. And then I figured, just for fun, like, now we've worked out that an Irish passport is very mildly more powerful than a British passport, except in specific circumstances. Although, I guess it's only more powerful in specific circumstances. The real benefits are Russia and the EU and Mongolia, if I'm Irish, and it's New Zealand... And it's, where else is it? I forgot the countries already. Barbados maybe, as well as Japan, and I'm just gonna find the list again. It's so memorable that I forgot it already. But so if I get Jamaica, I get Japan, I get India, and I get also there's Ireland on there. But also I get Panama. Oh no, Panama's already there. So anyway, you get slightly easier access to a few countries if you're British than if you're Irish. Isn't that wonderful? And if you get access to a few countries easier if you're Irish than British. What about Sri Lankan? You know, I keep talking about I have a grandmother from this part of the world, because Sri Lanka, I assumed, wouldn't have a very powerful passport, but I assumed something, right? And then I pulled up their map. First of all, this is their passport. I find it wacky. Their official title... Oh, you can't see it. It's behind me. How embarrassing. I find it very interesting that their official title as a country is the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka. Like, Democratic Socialist is not a thing you usually call a country because, you know, it is a real political ideology, not even a particularly... You know, it's not even a particularly rare one, but it's rare that a country defines itself as that. Like, you usually pick, like, a very stable term. But Democratic Socialist is the term for Sri Lanka, and according to the Passport Index, you can access these countries. So, to clarify, visa-free is only Indonesia and that island in the Pacific. There's that one as well. Also, Lesotho, visa-free. That's it. That is the list of countries. Again, to reconfirm, you know, there is obviously e-visa and visa on arrival. To reconfirm with the British map, where it's like most of South America besides... Is that French Guiana? I guess it's probably Guyana. So you got most of... I think that is Guyana, actually. So you got most of South America, most of North America, most of Australasia, all of Europe. Sri Lanka has 3 countries. And then in there, like, if you count everything that's not formal visa required, it's a list of very few countries. And so, you know, long story short, I decided, you know what, maybe I should put this idea for Sri Lankan citizenship on hold. Then I looked into, not only is it a tricky, not only a not very valuable citizenship, but also you can only get citizenship if one of your parents is Sri Lankan citizen and were born in Sri Lanka. So I wouldn't even be eligible. And even if I was eligible and I wanted that passport, I also would have to declare it to the Sri Lankan minister. They have to approve my dual citizenship before I can get it. So long story short, I can get, you know, like I'm entitled to 2 very powerful passports, but I'm not entitled to this one because they're a bit choosy about who they give this one out to. And isn't that bizarre and interesting? Also, you know, in case you're thinking like, well, this is a sad map, I decided to look for them on the Henley and Partners global passport ranking. So, like, they're not 1, of course. They're not 6 or 7. You know, they're going to be in the middle there, right? Because Sri Lanka is a middle-income country. Like, if you look at... Sorry, wrong map. If you look at global wealth, you'll see that Sri Lanka's, like, somewhere in the middle. Like, $5,000 to $10,000 of wealth per adult. You expect the least valuable passports to be the ones in Africa, but again, I show you the rankings, and it's like, still don't see Sri Lanka. I had to Control F Sri Lanka to find it. It's all the way here on the left. Okay, wait, let's scroll to the left. It's all the way here at 100th on the left. Of 109 countries, Sri Lanka scored 100th. There are only 9, I guess they're also kind of joint in some ways, passports that are valued under that, and they include countries that aren't recognized, like Kosovo, North Korea, the Palestinian territory. It's like... they've got a less valuable passport than South Sudan, the world's newest country. Because I would have assumed that the least valuable passport would be like the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Generally speaking, when you look at world wealth and you look at passports, they tend to correlate in terms of strength. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is, the rich countries hate the poor countries. Am I right? Am I right? Circle jerk in the internet. But the second reason is there's generally seen as like visa-free access makes sense for like a holiday or something, but if you have a fear, you know, if there is a real value to someone coming to your country than slipping into the net illegally, then you obviously have to be much more strict about how and why and for what purposes they can come in. That's the usually given assumption. Whether you think that's true or racist is up to you, I guess. But so as a result, like, you know, the visa-free policy of Russia is that any country in the middle-income club pretty much fine to come in, if they're politically good friends as well. Whereas a lot of well, actually, let's go back to that. Whereas if you look at it, you can see that's kind of true. You compare the 2 maps. Obviously, America, Canada, and the UK. Actually, you know, they don't like any of the Anglosphere, huh? They are not fans of us. But you know, you look at like you know, like ignoring their political rivals, it does correlate pretty well. Like, yeah, you have connections, or you have enough money that it's not a concern about the connections. And so yeah, you would assume that. But no, here is Sri Lanka's passport, the one that they're super selective about giving out because they're really worried about people wanting to have one alongside another citizenship, and it's this valuable. So yeah, today I learned I will not become a Sri Lankan citizen, and apparently looking into it, they just haven't made effort into it, even though they have a huge diaspora, And what's the reason for that? You know what? Isn't it interesting? Also, it's so interesting to read through this list and just be like, Finland, visa required. Like, imagine having to, like, it just sounds like a lot of effort, in my opinion. And that is one of the things you should appreciate. If you're from any of these countries on this list that is on the left side, sorry, if you're from any of the countries on this list that's over here, the Singapores, the Denmarks, the Frances, if you're from a high-income country that has a valuable passport, it's something you should appreciate more than you probably do, because a lot of countries, to do the things that you might assume of like as your right, your ability to go into a bar in Spain and speak English loudly at the waiter till they understand that you want a Corona. Well, first of all, you're causing the world's problems with that. But second of all, that right or whatever is actually a very unique thing between countries. Like, it's becoming more and more common. But yeah, it's interesting, and the world is getting more shut down. So maybe you value that more now, or maybe you don't. Anyway, so I want to talk about a couple of things before we go here. One is the fact that I am British, so I'm this one, that red country there. I don't know if that's ever come up on this channel, but you know, I'm coming out and I'm ready to share with the world this brave fact about myself. And I'm also going to close that tab. But I'm also going to mention that, like, my girlfriend is from the United States. And so there's an interesting thing that the United States has a pretty powerful passport. In fact, it's joint with the UK. You'd expect it to be more powerful, but, like, apparently America makes a lot of enemies. Who would have who would have known about that? Anyway, so an interesting thing that we go for every now and then is trying to work out which countries, ignoring the list of places they are banned for because of their COVID numbers, we try to every now and then work out, like, which countries do we have in common. Oh, there's a travel ban listed on North Korea. That's interesting. Anyway, so the interesting thing we tried to work out is, like, okay, here's her passport, here's my passport. What do we have in common? And it's really interesting to me just how much the two passports really have in common. And maybe you find that interesting, or maybe you don't. Maybe you think that, like, well, of course they've got the same power. Of course they've got pretty much the same map. But yeah, there are very minor differences all over the world. She had to pay for an e-visa to get into Turkey. I can just walk in. I can walk into Turkey. What do you have to do? You know, American. Yeah, there you have to pay $50 or something. And it's interesting, like, the very minor differences between countries that have similar power levels. I can go to Oman, visa-free. You know what has to happen with the American? Lots of payment. And I don't know, it's just very interesting, the minor differences. So Americans can't go to Venezuela, for example. You know what British people can do? Make bad decisions anytime they like. Anyway, with that said, one other thing I wanted to talk about is the reason I wanted to get a... I think I want to talk about this EU thing very briefly. The reason I wanted to get another passport, and that I didn't immediately do it upon realizing that you know, my EU citizenship was running out on the 1st of January of this year, is because honestly, you know, first of all, the value of freedom of movement is kind of a one-way flow. I mean, not only in terms of, like, oh yeah, well, obviously people in Europe are incredibly likely to speak English. They actually can integrate very easily in the UK, versus vice versa. It's very hard for you to do the reverse. But also, the UK is in a separate, like, immigration zone to the rest of Europe, meaning even though you just have to show a passport, they scan it, etc., there is a physical border. But also, I've looked into, like, living in, you know, for example, if you want to live in Germany or Switzerland, you have to register with the local police office, like, very soon after getting there. You have to do a bunch of, like, extra steps, versus the equivalent process, which is generally seen as much easier on the return. And I just wanted to mention that, like, it's not the most appealing. I think a lot of people in the UK are freaking out about losing it, and rightfully so, right? Like, you've lost a thing you had before. That's bad. But I also think, just bear in mind, even though, oh yeah, we're in the UK is something Brexit, it's still visa-free travel for 90 days and any 180 days, which for the vast majority of people who freak out about that idea is, like, good. Also, it's not like if you wanted to stay for more than 90 days, there is no avenue. You just then need a visa. Like, you get me? Like, it's... like, I've never been like, oh, I wish there was free movement to Argentina. I'm so sad I can only go to Argentina for 90 days and every 180. I think it's 90 days. It might not even be every 180. They might do the thing where you can leave the country, rejoin every 180. You can do that in Thailand, for example. And I've never been like, oh, but I hate that if I want to work there, I need a work visa. And, like, cause, you know, that sucks. It's we would love to see those barriers go down and not up. But also, for the vast majority of people, you're all good, right? Like, most people didn't use the benefit when it was there. And it's sad to see a theoretical thing go, but also not. But the thing that I've realized, even though I have that kind of opinion, the thing that COVID has made me realize is, like, actually passports are pretty important. Like, EU citizens they shut down the EU border system, so they removed the point of the EU for a bit. But EU citizens can now go anywhere in the EU, even with varying levels of infection, because, like, whatever, we're going to value the principle more. And a lot of countries are closing their borders to non-citizens. So, for example, if you want to go to Canada, you have to be a national of Canada, a permanent resident of Canada, or a passenger who are asymptomatic for COVID, you know, whatever. You have to be a national or resident of Canada to get into Canada. There is no other choice right now. You have to be one of those two things, or be a spouse of someone who is. And so, if we look at Germany, you have to be a member of an EE member state, or Switzerland, or arriving from a EE state or Switzerland. And you must prove your family relation, etc., etc., or be a British national there before the UK left the EU. So basically, you can come into Germany if you are German or European. You can go into Canada if you're Canadian or are a Canadian resident, etc. And so, interestingly enough, if you wanted to go between those two places, the only people who are eligible right now, based on those two criteria, is if you're a Canadian resident but a German citizen, or a German resident but a Canadian citizen. If you're not both of those things, then the only people who can do it are people who have passports from both countries. If you are again, one of the crazy things that a lot of Americans have is just a citizenship to an American country. And it's crazy because, you know, there are flights going every day, like big planes. This is a 777. This is an A330. Yeah, they're not that big of a plane. But, you know, there are planes going between many city pairs that no one should be legally allowed to. But you know, it's like a life hack having a second passport. And this isn't the only situation where it's useful. For instance, you know, again, the fact that I can just claim to Russia, yes, I am Irish comrade. I don't know what accent is this. I am an Irish comrade. Yes, I'm loving the Irish pubs. And then if I want to get into you know, Japan, it's like, I am British comrades. I love the British pubs. Arigato. Anyway, so like the point is that it's very bizarre. It feels like it shouldn't be allowed, but most countries do allow you to have dual citizenship. And it feels like a bizarre life hack that just like, oh yeah, the little document and the words on the front change so much about your thing. Do you think, okay, here's the controversial question, because I've said enough controversial things, but the thing I have, like, because I don't have the easy solution, like, should this magic book that I got just because I was born in the UK allow me to the 7th most number of countries? Or if we're gonna, you know, have a system where it's effectively like, oh yeah, so if we're using the average wealth of a country, or not even average wealth, but the average likelihood of a country to, you know, follow visa guidelines, etc., you know, that sort of thing, should we do that on like an individual level? Because we already effectively do. Like, you can buy a Maltese passport if you invest $1 million in the country. In fact, I think this website from earlier, this dualcitizenshipreport.org, oh no, this isn't the one about the golden visas. Although actually, this will be useful to show us where you can get a dual citizenship. Did you know? No, don't make me download this. Don't do this to me. Okay. Oh, you have to buy it. Oh, rough. Who wants to do that? Anyway, so as you can see, looking at this map right here that hasn't loaded, dual citizenship actually varies by country. So you can't, it's restricted in Spain. It's not allowed at all in China or Kazakhstan or Ukraine or the Netherlands. Huh, how wacky. But Ireland and the UK and America and Canada, and if I'm not mistaken, Australia, right? Actually, you know, I've never questioned Australia. But anyway, the question I have is like, do you think you should discriminate against the whole country like that, and that's smart, or do you think you should? Because obviously, you know, you could say like, oh yeah, if there's someone on the bottom rung of Irish or British society, then they're just as much a security risk as someone who's on a middle income in Ethiopia or in Pakistan. You know, like I expect, like, if someone is a wealthy homeowner in Pakistan, of course they're not gonna. You know, do you think that makes sense, or do you think doing by country is the best system that we have? Do you think that it isn't a life hack? It just, some people, luckily enough, have parents from lots of places. Because then that's the interesting thing of like having. If you want your child to have the best opportunities for thing in life, find another country where dual citizenship is allowed, and find someone from that country to have a baby with. That's all I'm saying is the advice for today, apparently. Maybe. Anyway, with that said, I hope you'll enjoy the video. My passport's really beaten up, by the way. I was going to make a point in there that, like, if you look, the European Union has already, like, written itself off my passport, and in 5 years, I guess I'll get another one without it. So, isn't that interesting that I don't even need to get a new passport to say I'm not an EU citizen. Mine already doesn't say that. Also, I got this passport cover a couple of years ago, and that also doesn't say EU on it, so... Anyway, things are interesting. Maybe you find me interesting, or maybe you wish you'd stop watching these videos, but you can't stop yourself. Either way, it's pretty late in the video for you to be considering that right now, friend. I hope you have a good second channel day, and that you don't die in a house fire, unless you want to. Second channel, don't care. Goodbye.